of protection, which would involve us requesting that the agency review those same waste materials. So if we identify that it looks like it could be a radioactive waste or this type of waste needs special consideration, we'll send it to our technical expert and then to Oregon Department of Energy. Let's see, what slide are we on now?
Facility.
Okay, and I'm going to hand it to Jim Denson at this point. Jim's going to talk to us about the design of the facility and the environmental protection.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I really appreciate the community involvement, the questions that you all have. Chem waste, as some of you know, maybe some of you might not know, started in the 70s. The site is, as the agency said, about 30 acres, somewhere in that neighborhood. The facility is built to what we call subtitle D standards, subtitle C standards. Subtitle C standards means that it's built to manage hazardous waste. The facility, I think go to the next slide maybe. The facility has overlapping protections with liners that you heard Jeff speak about. It has leachate collection and monitoring. It also has groundwater monitoring underneath the landfill. The facility is about the safest tune for hazardous waste that there is. It's state-of-the-art liners. We're very proud of the design that we have. It's consistent with the rules for hazardous waste. Jeff had indicated that some of the other radioactive facilities that manage waste have similar type liner systems. It's just the best all-around type of design, but it also has a very good location. Right? It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, as you saw, away from everybody. We have a lot of buffer at the site, and that's on purpose. We manage hazardous waste at the facility. So we want to keep the community, the people in the area as far away from this stuff as we can.
Thank you, Jim. The only thing I would add to that is to follow up with Jeff's comment about the leachate, how water in the waste percolates down into the landfill. At the very lowest point of the landfill, it collects, and all of that water is managed right on site. So it's a closed loop system. None of the leachate, none of that water is managed off-site. It's all managed in that integrated system. And the reason for that is to protect the groundwater. So two really important environmental protection systems, the multiple layer liner system and the leachate collection system. So we're ready for questions. I guess I want to just say very briefly that we're going to do our very best to provide the information that we have. Hopefully you'll see that we're trying to do our best with that. I think that we're in a bit of a trust rebuilding mode, and these can be uncomfortable conversations. And the fact that you've given the time tonight to be here means a lot to us, and we're going to do our very best to respect your time and give you the information that we can.
Great. So let's see if this comes on. You just have to shout our questions. It says low battery. So before we do that, I just wanted to ask Mayor Buffton if you had any things that you just wanted to add briefly before we open it up to questions. And then the other thing I also wanted to note for folks is Jenny, who came over with Department of Energy, has a listserv, so for folks who want to receive updates from Department of Energy, public notices related to this, make sure that you see her and give her your email address so that you can be updated on those things. Jeff, do you want to say something real quick?
Just real quickly, most of you know me, I recognize most of your faces. You all know I wear 2 hats. I do work for county waste, but I'm also the mayor. I've been involved with city politics for 28 years. Right now, I'm wearing the mayor's hat, and I only believe that after a good, concise, and comprehensive review, waste management will move forward in a very progressive manner in addressing issues with improvements or whatever needs to be done. I've always supported waste management from a community standpoint. They've always been good partners with the county and with the cities. So I think we have a very good relationship, and I don't think we're going to get down the wrong path at all. But we're moving forward. So I just want to say that.
Okay, so with that, Department of Energy and are both here to answer your questions. So if folks just want to raise your hands, we'll get to questions.
Do you want to come up, Jeff? Ken?
Anybody have a question? Right over there.
Yeah, so my question is, I mean, I'm very happy to hear that it sounds like it's contained and it's not going to affect the employees. Another concern I have is I moved here a couple of years ago, and the first thing I did before I moved here is I Googled Arlington, Oregon. And I think that's very typical of anybody who's going to move to this area. I know that I was in the Dalles a couple of weeks ago, and a woman said, oh, my son just got on Amazon, and he's looking for a place to live. And I said, oh, you know, I live in Arlington, Oregon. And she's like, oh, no, we already looked at that. We Googled that, and there's, you know, there's waste, radioactive waste there. And so, you know, a big issue is going to be how do, you know, property values around here. I don't have a house for sale, but anybody who does, you know, somebody Googles Arlington, Oregon, and is talking about the radioactive soil here. It seems like there needs to be some kind of a PR campaign to put a message out to change people's thinking, because most people nowadays, if they're going to move to this town, first thing they're going to do is Google this. And I know 2 years ago, had I done that and this information came up, I wouldn't have moved here. Just because of, you know, fear that people would have about that. So my question, I guess, to waste management is, how do you repair that for anybody who might be, you know, down the road going to move here, and then they're finding that information out. It just, you know, it's.
You know, I would say one of the good things about the social media environment that we have right now is that there is so much news out there, it's hard to keep pace with it. It was big news at the moment. And I think as we come back to the community for another town hall, it will be news again. But there's a lot of good things happening out there at that site as well, and the waste management story is strong and widely covered by media. I mean, Gilliam County has a lot of wonderful attributes as well, and I know windsurfing and the different economic development projects that the county's involved in. All those positives, my bet is that this big news today, as soon as we're in motion with our corrective action plan, it will be able to distance ourselves from it as a company and as a community. I mean, we have a good, strong local employer. It's in our best interest to deal with this responsibly and quickly and move on to doing better things.
I think we have a mic now. I'm going to pass this down.
Hello, my name is Chris Jackson. I've been living here for a year on the corner of I&E and First. And I really don't find much fault with waste management. They're doing what they're supposed to do. I'm not finding much fault with the state of Oregon. They're doing pretty much what they're supposed to do, except that the pace of this is really kind of very slow. And I have spent 23 years in the environmental services area. Did another 10 years modifying sawmills and paper mills. So I have some experience with interfacing with the state of Oregon and so on. What I'd like to know is what's going to happen to that person that put that waste into those containers and falsify those forms. Now, if I were to do that, even on asking for my mail to be forwarded, that's a misdemeanor. That's a criminal offense. I'm hearing all these nice things going on. I want to know who's going to pay consequences for this. And obviously, waste management, you are doing what you can, and I expect you to do more. But you are a large and stable employer, so I want you to stay here. The state of Oregon is doing what it's supposed to do, although spreading this out and comparing the entire population of Oregon versus just the people in Arlington and just the employees of waste management and say that they're not going to be affected. I think that's an unproven statement. Really is, I could go on, but that's an unproven statement. So I don't think anybody's really doing too much bad here. I just would like to see somebody go to jail. And I'd like to have that person from Wyoming. And if we can't send somebody from Wyoming to jail, why can't we just pick up that stuff, put it back into the container and send it back there? Really. It's just, I want somebody to pay consequences for their actions.
So Chris, Cam Waste is paying the consequences. I mean,
I'm sorry about that.
and so somebody is. And as this is an opportunity to improve the process as well, I mean, from waste management's perspective as well as the state's perspective. I think that's we're not pointing fingers, although there's a lot of information under review at this point about who did exactly what. And I guess what we can say tonight is that we know that that process broke down and that waste management is going to be accountable for getting the process right. That's our responsibility at this end.
Jim Wright, 1145 Columbia View Drive, Arlington, Oregon. And this is pretty much for my judge. The same entities that lost sight of what their responsibilities were, for whatever reason, are those entities up there telling us now that they're going to come up with a fix. And so I would like to see, I've worked in the waste industry and hauled hazardous waste for, I don't know, 25 or 30 years. I worked at Rocky Flats Arsenal, I worked at Kevin Hill's facility for waste management, so I have some idea how this stuff works. We need an outside agency. We need a CH2M Hill or someone to come in here and on a daily basis be out there to know what's going on for those people like myself that live in town. I feel bad for the employees. What about our water in the future? What about our air in the future? I know a lot about landfills and the encapsulation that's done and how that works, and hopefully that is 7 feet deep. We certainly hope it is. You know, but we don't know that. So here we said there isn't anything we can do, but I believe our county can, because truly chemical waste management has violated their conditional use permit with this county. So we're in charge. And it's our commissioners to decide how to move forward, not you folks. Thank you.
So Jim, a couple points. The county doesn't have a conditional use permit with Chem Waste Management. The conditional use permit is with Columbia Ridge Landfill, so that's a different topic. But your comments about making sure that the environment is protected, that's really important. And that's what we do with DEQ all the time. So there's a separate state agency that's involved and gets regular information about what's happening at our groundwater monitoring wells, what's happening with the liner, all of that information. That's when we talk about this being a highly regulated environment, highly regulated industry. That doesn't quit. I mean, it's constant. There are surprise inspections from EPA and DEQ. They come in, they look at our documentation. Well, we're not in violation of a DEQ permit. What the problem was...
And no fine. Break it out.
Everybody up there failed. Every one of you guys failed. I think I can talk loud enough. The one question that I have
is, how can this go on for 3 years? I don't understand that. Does the stuff that gets shipped up there, trained up there, how often does it get tested? Is it once a day, once a week, once a year, once a month? Never? If no one would have said anything about this, who knows how long it would have been going on?
It would have kept going on.
I don't understand that. What's the process? How does that work?
Well, it's going to work differently in the future.
I hope so.
One of the other changes that we've made is that there will now be an annual review of our waste profiles. So under the old system, when a company would get profiled for a certain material, or a certain material would be profiled, not a company, that would go into our database, and the approval information with that would be used going forward. And now we're going to be using an annual review process. So if there's material that has been approved in the past that needs a second set of eyes, maybe needs to go up to these other level of reviews, that process is going to be there and it'll be better.
But all that is I'm going to tell you what I'm shipping you is okay. Someone needs to check it. That's, once again, this is my opinion. Because obviously whoever sent this crap said it was fine. That was a lie.
Yep, well, it wasn't good enough. The process, the exchange of information and documentation analysis was not good enough. You're right.
So, and because of that, nobody gets a slap, you're going to get slapped on the hand. Where is the deterrent? Hey, don't do that again.
So I will tell you that it's a lot more expensive to do business when you screw it up. You know, problems are expensive.
Well, of course they are.
So the corrective action plan, the energy that needs to go into this, the expenses connected to that are problematic for any company. And we want to do the right thing, and that's the way that we're profitable and we take care of our customers and take care of our communities. Nobody wants to do it the wrong way or the expensive way.
And I really hope you guys understand that we don't need a deterrent to do the right thing. Mistakes happen because we have a lot of humans that work for us, right? Unfortunately, with this facility, every mistake we make, and we made a few, sometimes, most of the time, end up in a violation. Somebody forgot something, somebody didn't do what they were trained to do exactly.
That's the nature of the beast.
That's right. So I just hope you understand, and those of you that have been here for a while, we don't need somebody to send us a violation to fix something. We just don't. We always, every day, our employees want to do the best that they can do with integrity and try to get, to get it right every time, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. I understand I understand very much.
Go ahead.
You know, we were talking about fines and waste management and not getting fined. It's my understanding in North Dakota, it's $2,000 a bag that gets dropped there. That's their fine. That's just for one bag. But my question is, you know, it kept being repeated about risk and current risk. And if there's not an immediate risk or a current risk, when are we going to find out if there's a risk in the future?
It's a very good question. As part of the notice of violation that we've been given, we have to do a very detailed risk analysis that takes all of those things into consideration. The best way I guess I can explain it is we don't know in 1,000 years if somebody's going to buy a piece of property next door to the facility and build a house. So we have to look at different scenarios over a very long period of time to assess the risk. As you've heard, we've assessed the current risk. There isn't any, but we have to now assess the long-term risk for that. And that, once we have that long-term risk assessed, then that drives our corrective actions. Because until we know what the risks are, if we threw out corrective actions, just to throw out corrective actions, they may not cover the risks that we identified. So we're hoping, we're working with a lot of consultants right now and the agency. There's a lot of stuff that has to happen. We have to say, here's what our idea is. They have to say, no, that's not good enough, we want more, or whatever. It's going to be an ongoing conversation. We're hoping to have a preliminary assessment very soon, next 60 to 90 days. But the final document, the one that you guys are going to get a chance to see, read, and have a meeting about and comment on, that's going to take longer. We're hoping less than 6 months. We don't want to rush it because we want to make sure we get to the right answer.
Jeff, do you want to add to that?
So, let me respond to a couple of comments that have been made about fines and deterrence and things like that. There are different rules and different laws in different states, and they have different abilities to assess fines or not. One of the things that I had mentioned that we have discovered is we do not have a robust fining system, if you will, or enforcement system, and that is a change that moving forward for us, that is something that we intend to remedy. There was talk as well about deterrent, so I think that will eventually become a deterrent for us. It's going to take some time. As Jeff mentioned as well, there's the way the program was set up for our agency going back in the 70s. It was not envisioned for this type of situation, this type of waste. And we need to be able to respond to that. And one of the things that we have looked at moving forward again is whether we need to have a more proactive role in terms of assessing what's going on to Arlington or anywhere else. So that's something for us to look at moving forward as well. And I think Jeff talked about this more.
Sure, yeah. I'd just like to add to what Jim had said about long-term risk and moving forward into the future. Our division actually mostly works on the Hanford site, up the river there, where they have like actual nuclear weapons waste that's there in the ground. And when we review the long-term risk documents that they're looking at, we think about the risk out 10,000 years and beyond. We think about what changes could occur in the Earth system, what changes could occur, as Jen said, maybe someone's going to put a house there someday, maybe someone's going to grow crops, maybe we don't know. And so we have to manage what we don't know about the future. And I'm bringing that same philosophy into this process here.
I'm Darrell Potter. I've been in Gilliam County 72 such years. In the last 3 years, we have been endeavoring to bring more people into Gilliam County, bring some of our students, graduates back home to work from home, and we've been working on housing. This is an incident that's just blown that out of the water. You're not going to get people to come here to stay when you got nuclear waste that wasn't supposed to be there. You've contaminated Gilliam County. What are we going to do about it?
And I would say we don't know yet. That's part of what this risk evaluation will help answer.
What company it was in North Dakota that shipped it out? What company shipped it out? Who was responsible for filling out the forms? And why are their asses not in jail?
So the company was called Oilfield Waste Logistics. It's based in
Could you repeat that?
Oilfield Waste Logistics. It's based in Montana. And we have not found any evidence to suggest that they did anything fraudulent. The documentation that they provided to Chemical Waste Management did accurately reflect what the waste was.
So
If that's true, then what's this whole thing about?
It's about building a better process.
It was about them accepting waste that should not have been accepted in Oregon.
So I have a question. Wait, so it's a hazardous waste landfill. It's designed to catch anything. I mean, what's the difference between, you know, when you do the studies on the future of this particular waste stream? I mean, is it really any more hazardous than the rest of the waste that you take, that you've already designed a system and to capture and to collect the groundwater and, collect the water? So what's the difference? I mean, the difference is that this was not approved, this was not legal to take in the state of Oregon.
Correct. So the risk assessment may show that there isn't an increased risk because of where this was disposed. Again, going back to the original intent of legislation passed in the late 1970s was that the desire was Oregon would not receive radioactive waste for disposal. That was our state's policy. So it did violate that law. And that's really what it amounts to for us. It's not that this level of radioactivity is a huge hazard that you know, as we mentioned earlier, it's already on the roads with low enough radioactivity it's not even required to flag it. But it does exceed our standards.
Sir, you said that this was out in the middle of nowhere and that it was not going to affect anybody. Actually, the word you used was nobody. And I do want you to know that we live out there and we're not nobody. And we're worried. And that's not out in the middle of nowhere for us. For a lot of people, that area is actually home.
Thank you for that. If I left you that impression that I thought you were nobody, that's absolutely incorrect.
Okay. And ma'am?
Apologize for that.
Thank you. Ma'am, you said that you put community first. And as somebody that lives out there and has to sit regularly behind a train for 30 minutes before she can go anywhere on a public road, I doubt that. So I take everything else that you say with a big grain of salt, because that does not ring true for me. I mean, if there's an emergency out there, heaven knows what would happen. So when you say, you know, the rest of the stuff you said up here, it's hard for me to believe you on that. And Jeff, you said that you're not worried about this getting into the river, but there are 2 rivers, and there are water systems, and most of the people that live out there live on a water system. Now, this wasn't supposed to happen in the first place, but it did. And then we showed this graphic that shows how this won't leak. But if this wasn't supposed to happen and it did, then how do we know that won't happen? It's a real risk, and especially for us people out there. That's a real worry.
Well, I agree. I think we ought to look at it, and I think we ought to look hard at it, and we ought to throw some curveballs at the analysis that we're doing to say, what if we're wrong about something about our analysis? I think we need to look at all the angles, and I think we need to say, we need to be so confident that this is not going anywhere, and if we're not, we need to take action. I am right there with you.
That was going to be my comment too.
Are you speaking as an individual or as a representative of the organization you're leading?
I'm sorry.
Was that last answer as an individual or as a representative of the organization you're leading?
In that case, I think both.
Both. Well, in that case, I'd ask the organization to join with us and prosecute somebody.
I just want to reiterate, this should never have happened.
Yeah, that's right.
You take the responsibility for it.
I understand.
And
taking responsibility with action.
I'm sorry?
How are you going to make sure this doesn't happen again? How many times before?
That's a good question.
How many times before has this happened? Nobody said anything. This has just been buried. Nobody knows about it.
So, sorry. I'll take your first question first. What are we going to do about it? What we've done about it is we've changed our process, the process that failed. Now, if we get a profile, a waste profile, that has radioactive analysis, laboratory analysis, or from an industry sector that creates these radioactive materials, TR materials, or they're claiming an Oregon exemption for radiation, those get stopped in their tracks. Those go to a technical expert that's an expert in radiation and understands the Oregon rules. He reviews them and says, nope, don't have enough information, or got all the information I need, you can't, it doesn't meet Oregon's rules. It stops right there for us. The consultant, the technical expert could say, I need more information, we'll ask the generator for more information. Once the technical expert, if he's says, I've reviewed this, this looks good to me, I think you can take it under Oregon rules, we're going to then move it to Oregon Department of Energy for their recommendations. And if they say, yep, we think you're right, we will accept the waste. If they say, nope, you're wrong, that it doesn't work that way in Oregon, we won't take the waste. So that's what we put in place since this came out. Now, there are other things that we will do once the risk analysis is done, and we have a corrective action, we can come up with a corrective action, so there's more to come. Does that make sense?
Did you say this came in by truck and not train?
Say that one time.
The waste came by truck?
So, we think one load came by rail, and the rest of the loads, don't quote me, but I think there were 65 loads. I can give you the exact number if you want. The rest of those came on what was called a walking floor trailer type truck and trailer. Those were, versus the rail, they were transported by the generator. Oilfield Waste Logistics. They own their own transportation.
And did you say it was not placarded or marked in any way?
Yes.
And so I'm wondering if it's as concerning as a violation, why the trucks would not have been required to be placarded, one. And two, is there a secondary catch in here that could have been Oregon Department of Transportation that shouldn't we know that this is traveling through across much of our state? And would that have been an additional catch that something was being delivered that wasn't supposed to ever have even come to the state?
We have data from the state of North Dakota that does have information on most of the shipments. And what we have in that data is that nothing exceeded the U.S. Department of Transportation standard that would make you have to do a placard. Their standard is 2,700 picocuries per gram. The highest of the waste that was received based on the data we have was about 1.5 tons out of the 1,284 tons. And that highest amount was 1,731 picocuries per gram. Most of it was much less than that.
Other questions? Anybody want the mic? You were raising your hand. Reconsidering.
You just put out some numbers of what the picograms were. How do you know those if you didn't know them then? I mean, you didn't know them for 4 years, but you know them 2 weeks after you came out in the paper.
Well, we didn't know that this was happening. And once we did know, then we contacted the state of North Dakota, who tracks all of the waste all of the TMO waste that leaves their state ever since they passed a law in 2016.
So they knew it was coming here.
They did. They didn't know that it was against our laws. And once we told them, hey, this stuff came here from this generator, they gave us a spreadsheet with all that data and said, here's what we tracked. And so then we could compare that against our standards.
If they didn't know it was wrong, then why did somebody call and say it was wrong?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question? No. Repeat the question.
The question was, I'm sorry.
If they didn't know it was wrong to send it here, then why did somebody blow the whistle from there? Somebody must have known it was wrong.
Right. The State Department of Environmental Protection in North Dakota were the ones that were keeping the data. The person who contacted us was a citizen who has been involved in the anti-fracking, I guess, movement that's happening there. And he had heard from someone out in the oil fields. He asked them, "What are you doing with your socks?" And they said, "Oh, we're sending it to Oregon." And then he called us and said, "I'd like to know where this is going in Oregon." And that's what set off this whole chain of events, and we started investigating.
I'm sorry, but like one protester knows the rules better than the company that's sending this stuff? Shouldn't they know that?
Well, I don't know if the person who called us knew how it related to our laws, but was only trying to understand what was coming into the state. And then once we saw what was coming in, we compared it against our rules and said, "Hey, this should not be coming here."
Well, I recognize that. Pretty sure in order to send something to another state, you need to know the laws. I mean, I don't understand.
In order to send
A big company is not going to ship something to a state if they don't know the laws of that state, because they can get fined or criminal charges, right? So they obviously knew what they were sending here.
Well, shouldn't the waste management know what they're accepting?
So the answer is yes.
You knew it.
But we missed it.
Did you know it was?
No, we
should have known.
We should have known. And if I can kind of put a little bit of perspective, this is one profile of 6,500 active profiles that Waste Management, Ken Waste manages.
It only takes.
That's right. As I said before, it only takes one mistake at this facility to create, a problem. So there were humans involved. It's a breakdown in our system. We have looked at where it went wrong, and we have put things in place to make sure it doesn't ever happen again.
Yeah, but this problem could affect the ranchers, the farmers around this area now. It could drop their prices on their products. It could drop the pricing on the housing in this neighborhood.
It could be labeled.
Sorry?
It could be labeled, the whole town. I mean, there's farmers and ranchers out there, there's dairies. And as soon as this goes even bigger than what it is, because everyone's on to you guys for covering stuff up, I mean, everyone's going to be labeled. You're going to shut people down, and you guys aren't going to care. Do any of you live here?
Yes, I know.
Do the rest of you, would you live here?
I live here.
Our employees live here. A
No,
lot of
would
our
you?
employees. I grew up in a community a lot like ours.
Someone answer my question.
I would.
I would ask, if it's waste management, would you be willing to put up $100 million bond until it is settled, until it is solved?
Talk about financial insurance.
The site does have financial insurance for issues that arise with the state. I don't know the exact amount, but it's in the millions. I think it's yet to be seen whether or not there's a long-term risk for this waste being here. And I completely understand your concern about the black mark, if you will, that's on your community right now. If I could change it, I would. I'm sorry, but the reality is our process broke down. We've tried to fix that process. We're going to continue to refine that process. And we're going to work really hard to get you guys' trust back.
I think a lot of companies make mistakes. Typically, it's not the mistake that destroys companies, it's how the company doesn't step up and handle it. And we're stepping up in the best way that we can, to be open, to be transparent, to be cooperative with the agency. It's a rebuilding period. I realize we're hearing tonight, we've broken some trust, and that's not going to be rebuilt easily. There's a lot of good things happening at Columbia Ridge and Chem Waste, and I think that story and the story of the rich community life that happens in Arlington is going to be the bigger story and the bigger brand for this community than this single incident that has been determined to not pose any immediate risk to human health or the environment.
My friend builds houses. This is the black market's free to him. You can't make sales with people in the Dalles think that we have radioactivity here in Arlington. And I ask you again, would you be willing to put up a long-term, $100 million bond to cover all of those things that you don't know?
I wish I had the figures for the financial assurance. I'm going to take just a minute and explain this to you. So, when you operate in this industry, you have to put money, DEQ requires money be put in a bank account in advance.
Specific to this incident is my question.
Well, it's about the system scaling. So the investment.
Hey, folks. I understand folks are upset. This is obviously the place to do it, but let's, when we ask questions, make sure that they have an opportunity to respond to you. You'll have plenty of time to respond back.
So years ago, there was a landfill along Emory County Road. A lot of families had landfills on their own property. Nobody does that anymore because if you do that and you pollute the environment, you get fined, and the fines are astronomical. So if you're a company like Waste Management that's been in this business for 30 or 40 or 50 years, you've learned how to build landfills right and build systems that protect the environment. Even so, the federal government, the state government now requires that you put a big piece of cash in an account that's controlled by the regulator in case the system fails. It's for that kind of worst case scenario.
Right up here.
The amount of money you would put up to counteract what's on social media. Because otherwise, property values are going to go down. I don't care about their policies. The company Waste Management is taking all the heat for the stuff that originated in North Dakota. Why don't you attack the source in North Dakota and then put up some money for social media? You might run that by your corporate headquarters.
Well, we do take it very seriously to be the best employer that we can be. Taking care of our employees, good strong wages, good safety training, benefits, health insurance. Hopefully that, over the years we have built some credibility with you. I can only say that, I think we'll get through this. And I think the community will get through this and be able to look back on it and say, this is my commitment. You'll be able to look back on it and say, it shouldn't have happened. Waste Management stepped up and did the right thing.
That doesn't answer the question.
That's as best as I can do, sir.
I appreciate your efforts, but that does not take care of the center of the toxic material. And you guys are taking all the heat for it. Let's put some heat on the North Dakota people.
Well, we're looking, it's still under review, that part of it.
Let's go right up here. Go ahead.
Is that your jurisdiction? I mean, that sounds to me like something the state would have to say.
We have our customer relationships, and we're providing information to the state about
So
that.
you can give fines to a customer that doesn't back up with the customer?
Pardon me?
You can give a fine you can enforce a fine?
No, we're not the enforcer or the regulator.
Very good. I just wanted to make that straight because you were giving a very encompassing answer to something that you only didn't kind of have that much.
We have we have the details of the transaction.
We got it.
You got it.
Right over here.
I have two questions. The first is for you, and the second is for anyone from DEQ who might be here. First is, how much was Chemical Waste Management paid to accept these shipments? And the question for DEQ is, can you describe the leachate treatment system and whether it's equipped to handle treatment for radioactive contaminants? Or ODOE, if you feel you can respond.
So we would not discuss a specific contract with a specific customer. That company policy prohibits me from doing that. But what I can tell you is that making mistakes is much more expensive than doing it right. And you know, we're going through that painful and expensive experience right now.
I'm Dave Anderson, I'm with PEQ. I'm the Eastern Region Manager for Cleanup, Emergency Response, and Hazardous Waste Permitting. And I think the question was what treatment this occurred. And so I'll ask Jim, but I'm pretty much sure there was no treatment, it was just a direct burial of the waste. Is that leachate? Leachate. So leachate is pumped out and goes into evaporation ponds. And so it evaporates and condenses. Essentially, there's no discharge. And those are triple lined, similar to the landfill.
So that's an open air evaporation pond?
Yes. With dust. Pardon? With dust. With dust.
I think he was asking, he's wanting to know if our landfill is designed to handle anything that leaks down to radioactivity levels, to be able to handle it without material.
Yeah, so Energy kind of, talked a little bit about how similar, like radioactive landfills are designed similar. This one's designed similar to that. It is triple lined. There has not been a breach of any of the liners, so most of the leachate comes down to the first liner and it's collected. So there's two other liners. Those are still, I guess, dry. So that's kind of a QA/QC check on the integrity of the liner. That answers your question.
Is the leachate treatment system the same as a radioactive dump? Or is it just the landfill design?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Is the leachate treatment, when the leachate comes out,
Yeah.
is that designed as if this was a radioactive dump?
It is triple lined. I'm not sure on a radioactive landfill if there is.
I'm talking about the leachate itself, yeah, when it comes out. Is this the same design that you would see in a radioactive dump?
I'm not familiar with that.
Is it okay if I help a little bit? As you heard Jeff talk about, these are filter socks, right? Mainly. There's some other debris, which could be a pallet, could be PPE, could be other things. But the main source of the radiation is in filter socks. So you can imagine that the radiation is in the sediments that filter sock are intended to capture. Just in my mind, and I don't know, we haven't done the risk assessment yet, but in my mind, if the sediments are captured in the filter sock, it's highly unlikely, in my mind, this is my personal opinion, that those sediments would be released by that filter sock with the leachate that is passing past it. Does that make sense? So
It doesn't, I'm asking at the bottom, where you say leachate collection and pump, that liquid comes out.
Yep.
Would you expect that to look different if this was a radioactive dump?
So we don't expect, as I said, the radioactive sediments to be released into the leachate. Everything has radioactivity, right? It's just the levels of radioactivity. So because it's in something that captured it, my mind kind of logically goes to it's going to kind of stay there. But we're going to find out through the risk assessment. Oh, sure.
Rather than try to process all of it right here, I think we ought to look at it. I think the point about is the pond going to have dust? We ought to think about that. We ought to look at it. Is the leachate system prepared to handle radioactivity if it comes through? We ought to look at that too. We will.
Very good. I just like to submit then that the fact that the socks have concentrated down something that's spread out through the entire strata. And so you've got one concentration that takes place, and you're shipping it here. You've got another concentration that takes place, i.e. they're all in the same area.
You know, I have a third concentration, which is leaching through there and saps out of it. Over 10,000 years, it's going to sap everything out. So it's going to come down and then go to dust. So we've got a series of concentrations here, and what I'd like to ask you is, can we come up with a direct answer to the question, what are we doing about these concentrations? How can we stop that cycle? How can we track that cycle? How can we do all that stuff? Because all these people are talking about how are we going to support this. Well, in 10 years, if we can go out and tell the public that, honest to God, no three-eyed toads are around here anywhere, that would help us a great deal.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm not hearing. I'm hearing a lot of personal opinion mixed with policy for private corporations, and that's all civil law. It's not criminal law. And what I'm looking for is something solid. And I guess basically the buck stops right here with all the and we're not hearing anything. I'm editorial. We can track that. We've been very forthcoming. What my real concern is what other people said already. Who's going to pay the price of this? If I make an illegal left-hand turn, there is consequences. If I make a mistake filling out my address forwarding to the IRS, there are consequences, and there are criminal consequences. And you're saying, well, they're in Montana or in Wyoming or wherever. I would think that one of the first things we should do is make them all sign a waiver saying that they are submitted to the state DEQ. And they are submitted to new guidelines and new regulations for the film that they put there in transit in the middle of Montana with one thing to that's really kind of what I was hoping to hear. And I'm hearing from the crowd, but I'm kind of hearing muting about this.
So I want to start with the question of concentrating and how that works. I guess I would ask you to wait for the formal risk assessment. It is going to have some of those more technical details and actually do the math to the greatest extent we can. Yes, I think you're right that there is a series of concentrations that happen, even a geographical one. But then if you think about what is the rate of water entering a closed, capped facility over time in a dry environment, and then what is the rate of water actually taking radium away from a sock, that is actually a time-release capsule, if you will, on a very, very long, slow timeline. But again, please don't take my word for it. Let's look at the risk assessment and have that question be answered.
I'd like to specifically like to hear that question asked.
I'll ask it.
Yeah, just for folks who may have joined us partway, came in, this is intended to be sort of the first of a couple of town halls. So we're anticipating once they've done those calculations and kind of looked at these different scenarios that everybody's laying out, that they will come back and have, again, folks will have an opportunity to sort of weigh in on the next steps of this. So I just wanted to throw that out there and remind folks that you don't have to get it all off of your chest tonight. There will be a second opportunity to do so. So, any other questions for these folks?
Corporate in Houston.
Is our corporate in Houston? Yes, our main office is in Houston.
If I may, I'd like to respond to the second part of what you brought up.
I forgot about that.
Okay, you were talking about liability and beyond.
Yes.
So, as Ken mentioned, one of the things that we want to do is to look at our rules specific to penalties. And that we have the authority to open that up, to look at whether the restrictions we've set for ourselves that have to happen before a civil penalty can be assigned are correct. Whether the amount that we could find is the right amount for depending on different types of actions. All of that, when we redo that, it's a rulemaking process, it's a public process. And so if you want to have your voice heard as we look at rewriting those rules, please come participate.
Other questions? I think we have time for maybe 1, 2 more.
Yeah, you guys said you have a few minutes when you come $1 million levels of the radioactive things come from this place. Do you have some people, experts coming in to let us know later the levels?
Yes, we have a team of technical experts in radiation that are working for us, full transparency. Then they will be doing the risk assessment and they will be helping us with the corrective action plan.
Okay, the reason I'm asking that is because, personal things, the socks and stuff that catch us, those are about them. I also know they put sealant in that, so that's an oil. It gets caught in these tubes that can raise the levels of that at the same time.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm asking that is.
my biggest gap.
Levels of where we're really at. I don't think we're really going to get that answer unless we go there and find out where they're coming from, which we've covered something.
You mean in North Dakota?
Or North Dakota, they might take us another road somewhere else. I don't know if some people are going to tell us the truth, but we've got experts to go there and actually get the samples of this stuff.
I think we have some information on what was sent to us. We are going to be asking for more information from the generator if he hasn't. And that's going to help us figure out what do we call it, the source term? Yeah, source term. In other words, what the type of radiation was and what the levels were. We have what they reported in North Dakota as part of their requirements to ship wastes or to move wastes. And that's right now what we've used to assess the initial risk, I think he said. So, I'm sorry, did that answer your question?
It gets to the same point.
Yeah.
It's just, you hear from somebody the level.
Yes.
The level of exposure doesn't really get exposed.
Yes.
And
So
distances, whether it's going in the ground, in the air.
Right. What waste management does when we get into situations that are this serious, we go and hire the best folks to tell us, or the experts for that. We feel like that we have the best the money can buy. We go from there. The gentleman, one of the gentlemen that is part of the team, I guarantee he's not going to put his reputation and his name on the line for waste management. It's going to happen. So, we expect all of our technical experts to tell us what we did wrong, how we can fix it, right? Because if they don't tell us how to fix it, we can't fix it. So, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but we're doing the best we can with the best, highest quality technical experts we have in the country.
Is there a reason why you're using your own team to judge this risk and not going to an outside counsel to have somebody come in and assess that risk rather than, it seems like it would be a more open and even-keeled assessment rather than somebody who's employed by their employer.
So I can understand how you might feel that we would manipulate this process in some way or to make it better, right? I can guarantee I won't let that happen. They won't let that happen.
Well, there's a litigation issue there. I mean, that opens you up for a litigation area where people could come in and subjectively say, well, what's the value of this report? And it doesn't make sense. I don't understand why you wouldn't hire that out.
We are. As I said, we have all of, yes, those technical experts do not work for us. They work for their own consulting companies.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I missed that. I'm sorry.
Do you have a question?
So, the amount of waste, the waste that came in, we have an idea of what the level was that was buried out there. And we're going to go through the process, waste managers are going to go through the process of
really finding out exactly what it was. So can you give me some examples of what that amount would be like compared to like me getting my teeth x-rayed in the dentist's office, or maybe an x-ray for my hand or something like that? I mean, if it's comparable or not. I mean, you know, I just...
Good question.
Yeah. I can give you some examples that maybe will satisfy, maybe won't. So when you're talking about an x-ray, I believe that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 millirem, maybe? Millirem is the standard I'm going to use. That's about what you would get doing a cross-country flight, New York and back. The waste that was disposed here, on average across all the 1,200 tons, I calculated that we're around 90 picocuries per gram of radium. If you were to spread that out, this is just me having done some modeling myself. It's not their experts, so please, this is all preliminary stuff. I just want to give you a flavor. If you were to spread it out 6 foot deep over a 10th of an acre and build a house on it, you would get more dose than you would want. But if it was under 10 feet of soil, like where it is right now, it would be almost unreal. And so really the situation matters a lot. And so that's where the risk assessment is going to look at what is a reasonably conservative situation. And one I'm interested in is, let's go far in the future where everyone's forgotten this place is here and someone comes and builds a house. What would their risk be? And you look at, well, what if they drink water? What if they grow crops? What if they're spending all their time in the house? And there is a technically credible process to assess what that dose would be. And so the real answer is it depends, and we'll find out. Yeah.
Let's do one last question.
So I think this gentleman over here kind of touched on something that I'd like to understand a little better. It's my understanding that you're all in agreement that there's no immediate threat. But is the leachate an unknown possible threat? I mean, how much is being pumped out of that in a day or a week or a month? And then is any of that radioactive? Is it airborne? Is it tested as it comes out? You know, I feel like we're saying as long as it's sitting there and it's dry, it's okay, but we've got to pump in there because obviously it doesn't stay dry in the thing. So I'm just wondering, is that an area of exposure that is unknown? It's an unknown risk at this time.
I'd say that's probably fair looking forward. I can't say with 100% certainty what it is today in the leachate. We don't know how that leachate system is managed. And like I said, I think that's something that we need to be asking some questions about.
All right, folks. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming, for sharing your views, for asking great questions. Again, if you guys are interested in receiving updates from the Department of Energy on this issue, please make sure that you see Jenny. She's right over here. Give her your email address. The County Court will also be trying to push that information out as much as we can. When they schedule their next public meetings, we'll be a partner in making sure that you guys are all aware of when those are and where those will take place. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a safe drive home.